Oh, hi. Welcome to another lecture for UConn CAM's 1103 Classical Mythology. Let's open up a new series of trivia questions with this one. Please name the 11 actors who have played or will play Doctor Who. Enjoy the lecture.
So as we go through the Metamorphoses and these lectures about the Metamorphoses, I'm making a case for Ovid as a poet and a mythmaker who's interested in taking apart the received mythic material that he starts with. The next place I want to go with that is to talk about the figure that I call Mythic Guy and the way that Ovid deals with him. Now, Mythic Guy is just my sort of flip way of referring to the concept that you may know better as the eternal hero or the hero with 1,000 faces. The reason I call him Mythic Guy is that I like to reserve the word hero as a strict transliteration of the Greek word heros. And as we saw when we dealt with the afterlife and the underworld, the Greek word heros is very specifically a reference to a dead human being who is worshipped in the earth, and it has to do with the famous notion of hero cult in archaic and classical Greece. Very often mythic guys are heroes, but they don't have to be, and being a mythic guy isn't dependent on being a heros. And when we're talking about mythic guy, I'm talking about qualities that these guys have that don't actually have anything to do with the way they're worshipped within the Greek religion of hero cult. Now, the basic outline of what I call the Mythic Guy syllabus is something I'm going to ask you to get from the written out lecture notes. There are those elements beginning with his royal birth and ending with his expulsion that a very large number of mythic guys have. Not very many of them have all of the elements. Perseus is probably the best example of a guy who seems to have every one of the elements, but very, very many of them have several. And the basic pattern was one that was clearly recognizable even in the ancient world to poets and mythmakers like Ovid. Because when we see him treat the story of Perseus, as I'm going to show, he's clearly thinking of Perseus not just as a single figure, but as a mythic guy in relation to other mythic guys, above all, as I'm going to show, in relation to the most famous mythic guy in Rome at the time, Aeneas, the subject of Virgil's huge and important epic, the Aeneid. The first thing I want to talk about as a way of getting into how Ovid takes Mythic Guy apart is the way that he picks up on an essential element of the Mythic Guy syllabus, the very strange paradox at the end of the syllabus where Mythic Guy almost always gets expelled. And we know in the case of Perseus that this involves him having to leave Seriphos and then killing his grandfather Acrisius by mistake in Argos and then having to switch kingdoms. And there are various different ways of getting expelled for various different mythic guys. But as a concept, what the expulsion exposes is a sort of inherent weakness in Mythic Guy. And I want to start by exploring this with the help of a video clip from the wonderfully goofy Clash of the Titans of 1978. Desmond Davis's version with the help of the famous claymation animator Ray Harryhausen of the story of Perseus, Andromeda, and Medusa. What I'm hoping you'll pay attention to in this clip is what the actor playing Perseus, the inimitable Harry Hamlin, is trying to convey at the end of the scene, and what the relationship is between what he's conveying there and the Mythic Guy syllabus, especially as it relates to the glorious victory that he's just accomplished. To put it another way, why is Harry Hamlin portraying Perseus the way he is at that moment in the story, even though Perseus has just, as you'll see, hate to spoil this for you, defeated Medusa?
It will guard your life. Find and fulfill your destiny.
So my take on what Harry Hamlin is trying to convey there at the end is either constipation or some sort of exhaustion to the point of near collapse, despite the fact that he's just won a victory. Now, this might not seem all that strange. I mean, we do see various mythic guy type heroes of films portraying very similar things, but I don't think we investigate often enough why it is that they would portray that. And the reason, I think, when you think about it, is pretty simple. They're trying to convey that what they just accomplished was difficult, that in fact what they just accomplished was a feat that lesser mortals could not do. And that's something that's absolutely universal. Really, the only way to show that a heroic feat is worth doing by a mythic guy is to demonstrate that mythic guy has trouble with it. But what I want to suggest that Ovid recognized, and we need to recognize too, is that that very fact, the fact that mythic guy needs to show his weakness in order to indicate his strength, makes a hole in the armor, a chink in the armor of mythic guy. And it's a chink that Ovid exploits to amazing effect in his portrayal of Perseus. And in the next segment, I'll show you exactly what I mean.